Gifts, the things we sometimes give each other on birthdays, religious holidays, or just randomly throughout the year. They are usually seen as signs of friendship between people, but what about between countries? Because throughout history, and even in current times, countries often give each other presents. A historic example is the Amber Room, a gift from King Frederick I of Prussia to the Tsar Peter the Great. A chamber decorated in amber panels backed with gold leaf and mirrors worth around $130 million today, which was lost during World War II. Or Hano, a pet white elephant given by King Manuel I of Portugal to Pope Leo X of the Vatican. One we all remember from mythology with its historical accuracy being unlikely is the Trojan horse, gifted by the Greeks to the Trojans upon the siege of Troy, which I guess symbolizes the type of gift you don't want to receive. They might simply symbolize a friendship between the peoples of two nations, they might be some type of diplomatic effort, or they might be symbolic through what they represent. So in this video, I'm going to go over a few of the most interesting gifts that countries have given each other, what they were, why they took place, and sometimes what they meant. Starting with the ones on the thumbnail, the most famous country gift that exists is probably the Statue of Liberty, a copper statue which I only found out recently was originally copper colored, then oxidizing into the current greenish blue. This chart shows us the evolution of the statue's color, from the copper orange to a brownish color, then green, and now almost blue. It was a gift from the people of France to the people of the United States in the year of 1886. The statue is a figure of Libertas, a Roman liberty goddess. Its point was to commemorate the alliance of American and French people during the American Revolution, and to serve as a symbol for how the US Revolutionary War would inspire the French to overthrow their monarchs and also become a republic. A fun fact which you might not know is that there is also a small version of the statue in France. A quarter-scale replica sits in Paris, given to the city in 1889 by the American community in Paris to commemorate 100 years of the French Revolution. A gift in both cases whose purpose was to strengthen the ties between the peoples of the two nations and to represent their desired ideals, freedom and liberty. The other one on the thumbnail is a gift given by Egypt to France. In 1826, the Ottoman Viceroy of Egypt, at the time part of the Ottoman Empire, gifted French King Charles X a giraffe, then called Zarafa. The point of it was apparently to persuade the French to stop supporting the Greeks in their war of independence. It was apparently the first giraffe to be seen in Europe for over 3 centuries. Gifting animals was a habit in colonial times, mostly between European powers, but the tendency maintains itself today to some extent. Mali also gifted a camel to France in 2013 as a thank you for their liberation, and in 1972 China gifted 2 giant panda bears to the US after President Nixon visited in 1972, Ling Ling and Sing Sing. Sadly, the president did not keep them as pets in the White House, and they were housed at the Washington, D.C. Zoo. The point of the gift was that China was eager to establish official relations with the US, following their internal conflict and their dispute with the Republic of China, Taiwan, over who the real China was. A fun fact, between 1958 and 1982, China gifted 23 pandas to 9 different countries, giving origin to the term panda diplomacy. One of the most iconic gifts ever, probably on par with the Statue of Liberty, is the Resolute Desk by the United Kingdom to the United States. Given by Queen Victoria to President Hayes in 1880, the desk was crafted using wood from a British ship, the HMS Resolute. This was an Arctic exploration ship which was abandoned after getting stuck on the ice. An American ship found it, and it was then repaired and returned to the UK as a gesture of goodwill, in a time when apparently the relations between the two countries were kind of tense. After about 20 years, the ship was decommissioned and the desk was made from parts of its timber. It remains the presidential desk until today. And in 2009, the British Prime Minister Brown gifted President Obama a pen holder made out of the wood of the sister ship of the HMS Resolute. The US seems to have many of its iconic items given by other nations. For instance, the gavel used in the Senate was given to them by India, being made of ivory. In 1954, the gavel that had been in use since 1789 broke when, at the time, Vice President Richard Nixon used it during a heated debate. The Senate was unable to obtain a piece of ivory large enough to replace it, so later that year, India's vice president visited the Senate and presented a replica of the original gavel, which is still in use today. And one of the most awesome ones was from the UK as well, but to the Soviet Union at the time, the Sword of Stalingrad. In 1943, a ceremonial longsword inscribed by King George was given by the hands of Winston Churchill to Stalin during the Tehran Conference. It was meant to be a symbol of appreciation to the Soviet soldiers who had fought during the Battle of Stalingrad in World War II. In it is inscribed the phrases "To the steel-hearted citizens of Stalingrad, the gift of King George VI, in token of the homage of the British people." Another really cool one is given by the Netherlands to Canada, 20,000 tulip flowers. Every year, the Dutch royal family and the Dutch Bulb Growers Association split the cost of sending 20,000 tulips to the Canadian people. The reason why is as a thank you for providing asylum to Princess Juliana of the Dutch royal family and her daughters during World War II. It started in 1945 with an initial gift of 100,000 tulips, then changing it to 10,000 a year. So far, 830,000 tulips have been given, and in 2017, a tulip was even especially bred, resembling the maple leaf on the Canadian flag. The Canadian city of Ottawa throws a tulip festival every year, and nearly all of the city's largest parks contain tulips. Why they chose tulips over other types of flowers is something I couldn't find out about, but I imagine it's because tulips are a fairly common flower in the Netherlands and perhaps their most cultivated one. Speaking of plants, Norway gifts a Christmas tree to the British every year. It's a famous location in England during Christmas, London's Trafalgar Square and its Christmas tree. What I didn't know is that apparently this tree is given to them by Norway, also as a sign of gratitude for British support of Norway during World War II and their fight against German invasion and occupation. Every year, they choose a 50 to 60-year-old spruce and ship it all the way to the UK, where it is decorated with 500 white lights and apparently visited by around 40 million people every year. A similar example are the cherry trees of Washington, D.C., gifted by the Empire of Japan in 1912. Over 3,000 cherry trees were given by them to the US as a sign of friendship. One of the most expensive gifts was given by China to Costa Rica in 2011, the building of an entire stadium for free. The cost supported by China was around $100 million, and the stadium became Costa Rica's national stadium. Some say it was part of an economic deal between the two countries, and it might be the most expensive gift ever given between two nations. China has the habit of doing this either through straight up gifts like these, where they build roads, buildings, and infrastructure in other countries, mostly in Asia and Africa, but also apparently in America. The point must be economic diplomacy, both as part of possible trade deals or as a way of buying influence. A less positive possibility is espionage. Apparently they recently offered to build the headquarters of the African Union, which was then found to have many listening devices to spy on them. A real modern time example of the Trojan horse type gift. Another really interesting one was by Fiji to the UK, a whale's tooth. When the current Queen Elizabeth visited the islands, the local tribal chiefs performed a ceremony and offered her a whale's tooth, locally called tabua, as a gift. In Fijian culture, teeth are traditionally collected from the lower jaws of beached whales, and since whale beachings are a relatively rare occurrence, the teeth are highly valuable. They apparently play an important role in traditional ceremonies of marriage, mourning, and peacemaking, as well as on state visits. These type of state visit gifts or diplomatic gifts are very common, sometimes being things as basic as commemorative medals or sometimes symbolic gifts that heads of state or diplomatic representatives present to each other. And there have been a tendency throughout history. In the Middle Ages, the Byzantine Empire gifted many Western countries silks and fabrics to demonstrate their wealth. After the Congress of Vienna in 1815, the British royal family and government gifted valuable snuff boxes to those involved. An interesting example is the EU rotative presidency. In 2009, as Portugal ended its turn presiding over the Union, they gifted their successor country a golden oceanic electronic navigation device which the Portuguese call astrolábio, symbolizing how the EU would always be navigating towards a positive future. Ever since then, this item has been gifted back and forth between the countries that hold the EU presidency. And finally, one that also comes as a part of a diplomatic effort was the reset button given by the US to Russia in 2009 as an attempt to improve relations between the two countries, which, as we all know, have been tense since the beginning of the Cold War. The Americans gifted Russia a symbolic, non-functioning reset button, symbolizing precisely that, a desire to reset the diplomatic relations between the two countries, forgetting the conflicts of the past and allowing them to move forward in a positive way. However, it seems a pretty big mistake was made. The button was labeled with the wrong Russian word, and instead of meaning reset, it meant overload. Not that overload is negative, but it is an odd mistake. So, those are some of the most iconic and interesting gifts that countries have given each other. Do you know of any others? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you want, and I will see you next time for more general knowledge.